Alright, we back, man. How's everybody doing? Hopefully everybody having a dope day. As y'all can see, New York looking amazing in the background. Weather nice today. Let me know how it's looking where y'all at in the comments. And we gonna get into this. Yo, this one gonna be a little different. I want to start getting into different content, certain things that I can learn from, you guys can learn, I can teach, you guys can teach. And this one is about Ireland. It's about, like, I guess their history. The thing about it is I don't know too much about it. I know mad people that's Irish, but I don't really know too much about the history. So this should break it down in like 8 minutes. Y'all chime in the comments. Let me know certain things, that they miss. You know what I mean? Let me know if I'm saying certain things wrong. If when I'm watching it, I'm looking at it wrong. And we're going to get into this real quick. This is the Troubles.
Oh, diddly dee. A leprechaun put a bum in me potato. Ah! Now, with all the Irish people having been disgusted and left, we can start. Hello and welcome to Feature History, featuring the impatiently awaited and source of much pester, the Troubles, a rather understated name for a 30-year-long period of sectarian violence at its finest. It formed both the issues and the culture of our contemporary Northern Ireland, and as such a relevant topic today, you can expect many unwanted opinions in the comments. Enough about that though, we have 2 videos worth of controversy to get through here, and now. And later when the second part goes up. For the source of the Troubles, you can go all the way back to 1169.
Real quick, what I do want to say is, they said there's going to be a lot of controversy, so I don't know, man. I didn't know it was like that controversial, like the history, Excuse me if I'm saying something I'm not supposed to say, I don't know. I don't really know too much about world history, like outside of like from 1600 to now in America, you know what I mean? Like, that's all I really know about. I didn't really learn too much about anything else, but we're going to keep it going.
With the Norman conquest of Ireland. But for the sake of brevity, I'm going to try to rush to the 20th century. Irish leaders for many centuries would struggle politically with English kings, and this peaked with the Protestant Reformation that saw the majority of England turn Protestant with their monarchy, and the majority of Ireland remain Catholic. A rebellion in the late 16th...
Well, we got to bring that back. So somebody was telling me about this. I think this has to do with something like about a king that... Yeah, let me know the behind why like everybody went for being Catholic. So I know it has to do with a king and his wife, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure.
This peaked with the Protestant Reformation that saw the majority of England turn Protestant with their monarchy, and the majority of Ireland remain Catholic. A rebellion in the late 16th century saw new efforts to assimilate the Irish, by just replacing who the Irish were. Protestant English and Scottish were sent to Ireland to attempt to colonise the island, and saw success in the north, or as it is otherwise known by, Ulster. The following English Civil War and Glorious Revolution would see the Irish Catholics ally with the losing side, leading to penal laws being placed on them by the Protestant English Parliament. During the Great French Wars, the French would provoke a Protestant-led rebellion for Irish independence, which caused the British government to claim Ireland as a core part of their kingdom and bring them under further control. Concessions would be made with the Catholic emancipation in 1829, but it did little to improve their position. The damage had been done, and many Catholics were still made to live on the poorer land. A turning point would be the decimation caused by the Irish potato famine in 1845. 1 million deaths exacerbated by British mismanagement caused the Irish to demand for an Irish parliament.
Wow, I didn't know nothing about that. That's crazy. And I want to ask y'all, how many of you guys know this already? Like, is this regular, like, you learned this in school where you guys watch it at? Like, is this something like everybody know, or is this something that you gotta kind of do your research to know? Let me know.
Some demanded for full Irish independence, but the most popular movement was that of Home Rule. It'd see a self-governed Ireland within the United Kingdom. Its bill would finally be passed in 1912, much to the scrutiny of the mostly Protestant Ulster loyalists in the north. It'd however be placed on hold given the outbreak of the First World War. Some more radical Irishmen would come out against British rule in 1916, dubbed the Easter Rising.
Wait, does Ireland and like is it a beef between the British and the Irish? I never knew that if it was. Let me know. Is it a beef? Because it seems like it's been a little like, or was it a beef back in the day? It's obvious that's what he's saying, but did that like carry on or did that like end?
It'd fail, but when the insurrectionists were executed by the government, the rebels would become martyrs. Their fringe movement turned to public outrage. 73 members of the Irish Republican Party, Sinn Féin, would be elected to the British Parliament in 1918. and would refuse to attend the Parliament in London, instead choosing to form an Irish Parliament in Dublin in 1919. This action would spark the War of the Independence that saw the Irish Republican Army brought together to fight for, well, an Irish Republic. The Anglo-Irish Treaty drawn up in 1921 would see a partitioned Ireland, one to be split between the mostly Catholic nationalist South and the mostly Protestant loyalist North. However, there was a catch, as there was a significant Catholic minority present in Northern Ireland. There was also a substantial amount of people generally not pleased with the treaty, refusing to recognise the compromised Irish Free State, and certainly refusing to recognise a British Northern Ireland. The stem of the IRA would break off as the anti-treaty IRA and fight in a civil war, only to be put down in 1923 and have the Free State be affirmed.
I just gotta pause real quick. Yo, this is crazy to me. This is deep. And to think, like, out here, we don't learn about the school I went to, we didn't learn about any of this. And I kind of feel like this is something that we probably should have learned about. And it's crazy because we always just think, our history, what we have here is like the main history. And we know about our civil wars. And, we learn about everything once we hear, the world wars. But away from that, we don't really learn about anything else. It's so crazy. This was so recent also. So it's kind of like, I don't know, that's just wild to me.
These wars had caused a drift in Northern Ireland. The Protestant majority now suspected and occasionally feared the Catholic minority, who had grown to see the Protestants as oppressive and tyrannical. Over the course of several decades, segregation became normalized between the two communities. In hiring, education, and housing, Protestants and Catholics rarely mixed. The anti-treaty IRA still existed, however dormant. It had begun to see an influx of Marxists, much to the annoyance of the older, more traditional members. In the early 60s, Northern Ireland became subject to a civil rights movement.
Yo, this is really crazy to me watching this, because it's like the 60s out here was when we had our civil rights movement, and when I say we, like, in America, like the blacks in America. So it's just kind of crazy how, like, the world, I don't know, it makes me wonder, how much of this is, like, spontaneous and how much of this is, like, supposed that, was planned,
Set on highlighting the inequalities in the province. Staunch loyalists feared it as an IRA front, a facade made to lead to a united Ireland. Civil rights protests began to lead to riots, as both partisan loyalists and the Royal Ulster Constabulary wished to crack down upon them. This led to a great number of Catholics rejecting the RUC's authority, attempting to create their own institutions, as seen in the self-declared autonomous area of Free Derry. Tensions had been rising steadily since 1966 and would climax in 69.
69 was when ours got real crazy, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, what year did Kennedy die? I think Kennedy died in 68. Let me think, Martin Luther King. Yeah, that's crazy how everything is, like, so similar, but it's just different. Yeah, Martin Luther King died in 68. So I think John F. Kennedy died in 68, also 69. Oh, nah, he died in 63. So who I'm thinking about? Who died in 69? Something happened in 69, because that's when... but away from the history here, it's just kind of crazy how it's the similarities. That's the part that's, like, kind of, like, it's puzzling me right now, how it's so similar, how it's like, that's when we got to the height of our civil, rights situation out here in the States. And then it's the same thing going on over there.
Attempting to create their own institutions, as seen in the self-declared autonomous area of Free Derry. Tensions had been rising steadily since 1966 and would climax in 69. A Protestant parade was set to move through a Catholic area of Londonderry, or whatever you want to call it so you don't get mad. Protestants and Catholics would initially begin slinging any old crap at each other, leading to clashes. As the police moved in to crack down, battles erupted. This is known as the Battle of the Bogside. Hundreds of police and civilians were injured in the riots, and the officers of the constabulary would be pushed from the Bogside area. By the third day of rioting, things had become intense, and the Northern Irish Prime Minister requested British troops to relieve the officers. A battalion would intervene as a neutral force to separate the residents from the police and bring an end to the battle. With the news of the battle spreading quickly,
Alright, look, we only 5 minutes in. I'm gonna ask again, how many of you guys already knew all this information already, and how many people just learning like me? How many people is just like, didn't have any idea this was going on, let me know.
Hated Irish nationalists began to break out in protest, and the Ulster Loyalists, fearing a total uprising, began to clash with nationalists, causing widespread violence across Northern Ireland. With an overwhelmed and accusedly biased constabulary not of much help, the British Army would have some serious trouble maintaining law and order. The army had initially been welcomed as a neutral force into the Troubles. The Nationalists and Loyalists both believed the army was there to protect them from the other. As the violence continued, however, some Nationalists began to believe too little was being done to quell the violence against them. The divide in the population was clear, but beneath the surface another divide had formed. In the IRA, the traditionalist Republicans broke away from the Marxist bunch due to the perceived unwillingness of their leaders to protect nationalist communities. This new provisional IRA would soon dwarf its paternal organisation. They had, though, inherited a crumbling support.
But I don't get that part. We gotta bring that back.
Had initially been welcomed as a neutral force into the Troubles. The Nationalists and Loyalists both believed the army was there to protect them from the other. As the violence continued, however, some Nationalists began to believe too little was being done to quell the violence against them. The divide in the population was clear, but beneath the surface another divide had formed. In the IRA, the traditionalist Republicans broke away from the Marxist bunch due to the perceived unwillingness of their leaders to protect nationalist communities. This new provisional IRA would soon dwarf its paternal organisation. They had, though, inherited a crumbling support. Few wanted the help of a paramilitary gang. This changed when in the Battle of St. Matthews in 1970, the local IRA beat back an armed loyalist mob in a shootout, serving to guard a Catholic nationalist enclave. It was a significant propaganda victory for the organisation.
I'm really over here like stunned right now that all this was going on, and I didn't think none of this was going on. I knew, everybody know everywhere got their own history, but this just seemed like something that would have caught my attention already. It seemed like something that would have somehow been introduced to me at some point,
The British Army looked to disarm this violence. It would enter the infamous Falls Road area of Belfast, a nationalist stronghold, to seize arm dumps. They were thorough and harsh in their action, doing a significant disservice to their reputation. In the Falls Curfew, the army would come under harassment from both the IRA and angered residents, leading to the unfortunate death of 4 civilians. In August of 1971, the British Army and RUC would undertake Operation Demetrius, which sought to intern paramilitary members. However, their list held a strong nationalist bias, and the operation itself was subject to fumbles, leading to an upsurge in reactionary violence. Those interned reported torture. 2 IRA members were killed, 2 soldiers had also been killed, not to mention 20 civilians.
That's
it wasn't
crazy.
a good look, to say the least. With nationalist support of the army at an all-time low, and the hopes of defeating the IRA militarily dashed, the soldiers would be turned to local policing, checkpoint duty, and riot control. The unpopular policy of internment continued as well. Imprisonment without trial was seen as the only logistical way to deal with the unrest. In January of 1972, both the army and the police were deployed to oversee an anti-internment march in Derry. British paratroopers were present.
What's so significant about Derry? Because I keep hearing it's always in Derry. What's the reason?
Trial was seen as the only logistical way to deal with the unrest. In January of 1972, both the army and the police were deployed to oversee an anti-internment march in Derry. British paratroopers were present, and they had been despised for their role in killing 11 people during Operation Demetrius. Small groups began to lob rocks at the paratroopers, provoking the paratroopers to open fire in return. The crowd would quickly devolve into chaos. 28 people would be shot and 14 died. Given the circumstances of their deaths, the paratroopers were decried for their actions, and the British Army at large felt the ire of the nationalists, Catholics, and more. In what would become known as Bloody Sunday, it had put a definite end to any idea of a honeymoon.
Y'all don't even know how, y'all don't even understand how surprised I am about that. I'm not even gonna lie, that's crazy. That's really crazy to me. Just because that's I don't know. It's just crazy, man. Definitely we gonna definitely do part 2, and I'm gonna start doing more videos like this too to learn, because now I need to start learning about certain things also, and what better way to do it than with you guys. So definitely, I'm gonna see y'all on the next one. Make sure y'all subscribe. See y'all on the next one.